Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Over the next half an hour, we'll be looking beyond the business headlines by giving you in-depth perspective on the stories that are affecting all of us. Coming up on today's show. This week, the British government's Department for International Trade in the East of England has hosted Africa Week, a virtual conference offering expert export advice for British business seeking financial opportunities on the continent. The market entry consultancy firm, the ETK Group, was a supporting partner, and I'll be speaking about the week's proceedings with the company's managing director, Bolaji Chokwe. And celebrity entertainment consultant DJ Abbas will be joining me to discuss the embattled music and hospitality scene here in the UK, which has suffered billions of pounds in lost revenue over the past 12 months. Then later, the biggest company news stories trending this week. But let's start the programme with news from here in the UK, where there is only one story that Brits are all talking about, and that's Prime Minister Boris Johnson's roadmap out of lockdown. Since March the 23rd last year, the entire nation has been living their lives under some sort of restriction. The government's plans for easing will be split into 4 separate steps. From March 8th, all pupils and students will return to schools and colleges. People will be allowed to meet one other person outside, and every care home resident will be able to nominate a regular visitor. From March the 29th, outdoor gatherings of up to 6 people will be permitted. The government's stay-at-home guidance will end, and outdoor sports facilities will reopen. By no earlier than April the 12th, all non-essential retail, including hair salons, will reopen. Outdoor hospitality venues, gyms, leisure centres and theme parks will also be given the green light to open their doors. By no earlier than May the 17th, international travel may be permitted. Indoor hospitality, including hotels and entertainment venues, can resume, and large indoor events can restart with a 50% capacity. By no earlier than June the 21st is the point at which the government is hoping to lift all of the remaining restrictions on social contact, and all other sectors of the economy which have not already returned should be able to do so. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the plan aimed to be cautious but irreversible, and at every stage decisions would be led by data, not dates.
The vaccines reduce the danger of COVID, they save lives and they keep people out of hospital. But no vaccine against any disease has ever been 100% effective. So whenever we ease the lockdown, whether it's today or in 6 or 9 months, we've got to be realistic and accept that there will be more infections, more hospitalizations, and therefore, sadly, more deaths, just as there are every year with flu. Even if we sustain the lockdown indefinitely, which would itself cost lives and do immeasurable harm to our children, we would not be able to eradicate this disease. And that's why it's right gradually to replace the protection afforded by the lockdown with the protection of the vaccines. And our approach is to move with the utmost care and advancing in 4 steps, each with a minimum of 5 weeks apart, so we can properly judge the impact of each relaxation before we move on.
Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by our business correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, we've had a couple of days to mull over the Prime Minister's roadmap. What has the reaction on the ground been like?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are quite pleased that it's so clear. Things in the past with the government, they haven't really provided much clarity, and when they have, they've rolled back on it. There's been U-turns, there's been send the kids back to school and a day later don't. I think people are quite shocked and surprised and quite pleased that there does seem to be a plan, and it does seem to be quite credible, and there does seem to be some clarity in terms of when things are going to open. Obviously, it's not going to be absolutely on the dot specific, and the Prime Minister has said that this is dependent on the vaccination rollout going well. It's dependent on figures continuing to drop in terms of the number of deaths and the number of people with the virus. But I think generally people are quite pleased that at least there is some clarity in terms of what's going to happen in the future. Obviously, there are people that think this is going too fast, and there are probably more people thinking this is too slow. So a lot of the newspaper reaction was oh my God, we're going to have to wait 4 or 5 months before we can sort of meet up again in pubs. And so definitely businesses, I think they're generally welcoming the fact that this is going to be an end to the sort of stop-start. We're in lockdown, we're out of lockdown. But many businesses are saying that this is going to come too late for many businesses. They're going to have to close. So I think many businesses, especially those that don't have the cash reserves, are going to need Rishi Sunak come the budget to extend furlough, to give them more help. One pub chain boss said today was the day Boris Johnson condemned thousands of hospitality businesses to death. Obviously, there are going to be many pubs, hoteliers, restaurateurs that are going to really struggle to stay afloat in the next few weeks and months. The Nighttime Industries Association chief executive saying that 85% of those who work in the nighttime economy are considering leaving the sector. So there's definitely some really hard challenges ahead. But Boris Johnson did say there is a faster path out of this if the jabs continue to go well, and if they exceed expectations, we could be out of this before that June the 21st date. So I think generally across the board, people are pleased to know what's going to happen, or potentially that there's a date at the there's light at the end of the tunnel. But it remains to be seen as to whether that June the 21st deadline is when we're going to come out of lockdown.
Yeah, we're still in February. Just a reminder. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
One of the last sectors to be given the green light out of lockdown are entertainment venues, including the legal permission to hold large-scale weddings, funerals and naming ceremonies. The past 12 months have led to tens of thousands of vendors shutting their doors for good, as the entire sector lost billions of pounds in revenue. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by entertainment consultant Abbas Tijani, more popularly known as DJ Abbas. Abbas Tijani, or should I say DJ Abbas? I'm sure that's what the viewers want me to call you. Thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. So, according to the Prime Minister, by June the 21st, nightclub venues may get the green light to reopen. Were you breathing a sigh of relief, or do you join the chorus of calls for others in the sector and say it's just far too late?
Well, we'll have to wait almost a year, as it is already, a year next month. My last gig was March 14th. So by this time next month, it becomes a year. So to wait a few months, it was a huge sigh of relief from the whole DJ and nightclub fraternity. The fact that we would get the opportunity, hopefully, to start to ease back into performances and, more importantly, earning an income. A welcome relief, certainly.
I want to ask DJ Abbas, how has it been? I think particularly for people within our community, we know so many of us, all of us know somebody who lost their life to COVID. But of course, as well, we can't deny that many of the people within our community rely on cash in hand services, don't they? All of these caterers, hall decorators, MCs, DJs, so many people have lost earnings over the past year. What has it been like? Because I know you are seen as the oracle in the community.
Well, you're too kind. It's been a very rough period. Like I said previously, my last gig was March 14, and that's just me as a DJ. The whole entertainment and events ecosystem has so many, specialists, from cake makers to DJs to MCs to decorators, and that whole industry went flat out in just snap of a finger. However, quite a few people have been quite ingenious in finding other means, because what has happened is a lot of business has now moved online. So you have some people who are perhaps caterers or food vendors now doing special delivery service. I remember during Christmas, there were so many doing hamper services, and also during Valentine's. So some have actually been able to kick off online businesses. For me, I've started off a Zoom event on May the 29th, and we've done 37 editions, 200 to 300 people each and every Friday. We've been lucky enough to have some sponsored, a lot of support, tips and donations. So people have in their own ways tried to be ingenious, because the fact remains that people still need to be entertained, COVID lockdown or not. And some have been able to put that into place. And I see a situation that at the end of this pandemic, some of those businesses that have kind of started online during the lockdown would remain as support services for so many businesses thereafter. So it's been a a mix of misfortunes and blessings.
It has been a mixed bag, and I know you're one of the successful individuals who have managed to transfer your business online because, as you said, people still need to be entertained. People still want to celebrate their birthdays and naming ceremonies, etc. But what lessons do you think have been learned, DJ Abbas? And I'm talking about, you know, if we look at this kind of retrospectively, because we know that so many people didn't have registered businesses. Of course, some of our viewers in Nigeria will say, but the government were paying you to stay at home. But not everybody got those payments. Do you think, you know, the pandemic has changed the way some of our people do businesses in terms of being online? Because I'm sure before there were so many that just didn't have Instagram accounts or online businesses.
I'll give you a typical example. Just last night, my wife made me a very nice pot of Nigerian soup, and all the ingredients for that particular soup she made was sourced from a vendor who sells Nigerian food online. So from your snail to your pomo to your crayfish, we actually purchased online and it was delivered to us. So like I said, the pandemic has been a mixed bag of misfortunes and blessings. It has opened up for, in terms of blessings, a lot of people have, you know, jumped on the opportunity to be able to sell stuff online. If I look at the African community, you know, the vast majority of us get our food from Asian markets. 80% of that market is dominated by Asian wholesalers. But that has changed. That narrative is starting to change with so many people now ordering this stuff directly from the Nigerians, ordering from Nigeria and now selling online. So there's an online business that has kicked off on the back of the pandemic. And I think it's been a huge plus for many who've not been able to kind of like achieve certain personal dreams they've always had in mind. Lockdown came, let me try this. Just this morning, I got another message. I was just telling my wife, I got a message from somebody saying, we're not selling this online, or please don't come and patronize us, or, you know. So I think there's a major plus to come away from this. It's just that people are now beginning to realize that we can do more online, unlike before.
Before I let you go, DJ Abbas, June the 21st, some people are saying that should be called Independence Day here in Britain. That is when we're expecting a full reopening of society. The Prime Minister has said there is no going back. Lives will still be lost, but we cannot cripple the economy anymore. Do you expect to see, you know, those big prosperity churches to, you know, be at full capacity? Do you expect some of the local restaurants we all know and all patronise to be at full capacity? Will you be entertaining in some of the venues that you did last year? Or do you think some people are going to be cautious?
Well, in that same speech, the Prime Minister did also, there was a caveat that the reopening, because I should probably know the reopening for the internal venues inside have been left till the very, very last level. And the whole reason for that is the caveat is it will be data-driven based on data from hospitals and how the COVID vaccine has kind of like worked well with the population. So while all of us are excited at the chance of coming back come June, the fact is there are certain nightclub owners that have lost their clubs. There are certain venue owners that have lost their venues during this lockdown. They don't own it anymore. So we'd have to start to deal with, you know, sourcing new venues in certain parts of town. And like I said, as much as we like to come back fully, I doubt if that will be the case. It's going to be a step at a time. And some people still have to deal with this mentally. Some have to deal with it financially. And I don't think all that can happen in just a few months. I think that would take a stretch, but it's still a welcome relief that we're back on the 21st.
It is a welcome relief. I'll definitely be listening to wherever you'll be playing, because I'm sure that is going to be a sold out venue, whatever is the case. And hopefully we'll be able to get to the Nigerian corner at the Notting Hill Carnival, though that's still very far away. Abbas Tijani, DJ Abbas, director at DJA Media, DJ, of course, an entertainment consultant. Thank you so much for joining me on Channels Business Global. Coming up on Channels Business Global, I'll be talking about the Department of International Trade's Africa Week with the Managing Director of the ETK Group, Bolaji Chokwe. See you after the break. Welcome back to Channels Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. In a moment, I'll be discussing Africa Week with Bolaji Chokwe. But until then, here's some company news for you. Facebook will lift a block on news pages in Australia following a week-long standoff between the social media giant and the government. The site had removed access to all news content in the country on its platform and also prevented people around the world from posting links to Australian publications after the government considered legislation to force the company to pay for media content. Google had also threatened to withdraw its primary search engine from Australia, but the company has recently agreed deals with local media companies. Spotify has announced an expansion to over 80 new locations across the world, including Nigeria, Pakistan and the Maldives. The vast expansion means that the streaming giant will be active in more than 173 markets. The news comes almost a year after rival firm Apple Music announced its expansion into 52 global markets, taking its total reach to 167. Spotify will introduce 36 languages and tailored local content. HSBC has signalled its pivot to Asia, outlining plans to invest about $6 billion in the region. It's targeting wealth management and commercial banking to drive double-digit growth and has singled out markets such as Singapore, China and Hong Kong. The strategy update came as HSBC reported a 34% drop in profits for 2020, partly due to the impact from COVID-19. The UK-based bank already generates the bulk of its revenues from that region. Now over to our next topic. Africa Week 2021 has been taking place this week, bringing together over 1,000 companies for a 5-day virtual conference, helping firms to identify opportunities for UK companies to enter selected African markets. The event was put together by the Department for International Trade in the east of England. The market entry consultancy firm, the ETK Group, was a supporting partner of the event, and the company's managing director, Bolaji Chokwe, joins me now. Bolaji Chokwe, it's always a pleasure to have you on Channel's Business Global. I know you've had a really busy week, not just you, but your entire firm. I know the ETK Group have played a significant role in facilitating Africa Week. Can you just tell us, why the event is happening and why it's so important?
Thank you so much, Juliana, for having me on your program once again. I am so excited about the Africa Week. It's been such an honor organizing it as well. We've had over 1,055 businesses registered for the Africa Week, which is sort of unprecedented. It makes it the biggest event for Africa in recent times. And there's a reason to be excited about Africa. It's been so great to work with Marguerite Mayer-Basnet and her team and the Africa Week organizing committee led by Catherine Roberts, because we've had so much energy pushed into this event because of what's going on the continent. At the moment, the sub-Saharan Africa economy shrank less than the global average, and 24 countries around the world that actually grew last year, about 11 of them are in sub-Saharan Africa. So, when you put that in context, you can see that, it's been quite a difficult but a good experience for the continent. So we should be excited about it. And at the moment, just again, for some context, out of, as you know, 14% of the world's population is in Africa, but we only account for about 3% of the deaths and cases in COVID-19. So again, that means that Africa's had a very light touch with the pandemic. So this has actually enabled African economies to carry on to a certain extent. So the enthusiasm and the energy in the conference is not misplaced at all. And I like the way British businesses are thinking in a more sophisticated manner as to how they can penetrate African markets. It's been great.
Absolutely. I managed to pop in a couple of times this week, and I've got to tell you, it was definitely, you were able to network, which is great. I think a lot of times, especially with these big African conferences, a lot of people who attend just feel completely shut out. You can't kind of access all of the major players, but the team have managed to do this. Got to have an honest conversation with you, Bolaji. We always have honest conversations on screen and off. Is this just another conference? There have been so many this year. We're only in February and there's been Africa Tech, Africa this, Africa that. What is going to be different about this week, especially because we just heard a couple of days ago that so far no African nation has been invited to the G7 conference. We do know that Britain is holding the presidency. So if, on one hand, you've got the Prime Minister saying, Britain must be the destination of choice for British trade. But then when, you're having a seat around the table and there's an African chair missing, it does make people sceptical. Can you understand the frustration of some people, not just in the diaspora, but certainly on the continent?
I can completely understand, because it creates a disconnect between the rhetoric about, Africa trade and collaboration and looking at Africa as a peer and all of those wonderful things that we've been hearing in the last year or so, particularly. And then hot off the heels of the Africa Investment Summit, where Boris Johnson himself gave a very impassioned speech about, renewing Britain's connections with Africa from a trade perspective. I think it was quite disappointing for a lot of observers to see that African countries haven't yet been invited. We're holding on to hope that we will see an invitation soon, but it doesn't look like that at the moment. But I will say that about this conference, when we went into it planning this conference, we were conference fatigued. We knew that there'd been so many, particularly in the digital space, going on. And because it was easier to organize conferences virtually for a lot of organizations, we found that there was just so much going on, particularly about Africa. And we thought to ourselves, we need to make sure we're different. We need to make sure that this is a business event where we get business deals out of it, where we're pragmatic, where people come away with useful, not just nuggets, but useful tools that they can use to go into the market. And this is why we chose a multi-sector approach. This is why we dedicated days to specific sectors, so that people felt heard, people felt that their specific business was being looked after. And that's what we found so far, the interactive Q&A sessions where people can actually express their thoughts and views. And actually, in fact, it's been quite an honest sort of exchange, really, where people have actually expressed their frustrations as well. And so we really wanted this out of this conference so that people had good and solid takeaways.
Absolutely. Talking about tools and takeaways, I did hear you make an announcement earlier this week. I never knew that market consultancy and tech could merge, but you've managed to do that with the ETK group. It sounds like it should have been here before, but it hasn't. It's almost a first. Can you tell us about this new digital app you will be launching, which you did announce just a couple of days ago?
Yes, we're really excited at ETK. We've managed to put all of our years' experience and our passion for the continent into a digital platform called the Africa Business Console. And essentially what it is, it's the idea is that it makes Africa more accessible than ever before. Because we knew that there would be across the globe a digitization of services because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we thought that we needed to develop this faster than we were actually planning to. So whilst Africa is a continent where personal contact is extremely important, we did feel that there's some things that our clients can do from the comfort of their offices before they actually have to fly out to the market. So what we've done is that we've completely created a means for them to actually get country information that's relevant to them. They can download about 55 country reports for free once they create a profile on the platform. And then they can go on to order what we call a market readiness assessment, which at the moment, or which we used to do before COVID-19 hit, we used to actually go to offices, ask them questions about their business, extract that information, and then use that to deliver a report on whether or not they were actually ready to enter the market from a price perspective, compliance perspective, and other things. Now that whole service has been digitized. And so they can get that customized report from our in-country consultants uploaded onto the platform. They download it, they have a dashboard where they can see what is happening. And then when they go further, they can then get a service and they can curate those services for themselves, and then we will deliver them on the ground. So it's a mixture of it's a digital format for the user, but actually in the back end, our teams are still working in local markets to deliver our services.
Wow, absolutely amazing. Certainly, Bolaji, giving nobody an excuse not to trade with Africa when it's so easy and you don't even have to book a £2,000 flight to Lagos or Abuja. Bolaji Chokwe, the Managing Director of the ETK Group, thank you so much for joining me on Channels Business Global. Thank you. Sadly, that's all we have time for today, but do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channels Business Global. Goodbye.